Let's go. And live from Brussels, it's ZN Live.
Hi.
And we are very excited today because we have a special guest. And we have we have 4 special guests, including Dobie. Dobie, hello. I think Dobie's very excited to be on the show. But we have also Clare Carlisle, who is the Director of Communication of Animal Health Europe. We have Guido, who is an AM at ZN. And we have Irem, Account Director for ZN. And also fantastic hyper moderator at the latest EU influencer event. So Claire, very happy to have you on the show. Not long ago, you had a fantastic event in Brussels called Pet Power, and you had a lot of pets and a lot of commissioners. So how did pets and commissioners kind of interact in your event? Do you think it's a match made in heaven?
Always. I think pets and people are the, things that go together. So Pet Power Night was on Monday night, and we had well over 100 guests. And I think I counted about 15 or 16 dogs. So no cats. Unfortunately, the cats were too scared to come with all the dogs there. But yeah, it was a really, really great night. And it was an occasion for us to, meet up and for people to show off their pets, because pets never get invited to the EU meetings usually.
That's fantastic. You actually can claim that you have the most inclusive, at least as far as pets are concerned, event. Maybe next year you can have like cats and bunnies in separate rooms. So why do you think people have such kind of fascination for animals, and how important is that bond between people and their animals, especially after events like COVID, which brought out a lot of issues around mental health?
Yeah, there are actually scientific studies proving the many benefits that pets can bring when it comes to mental health, feelings of loneliness. And I think that was really proved during COVID. Rescue shelters for cats and dogs saw really, demands for people getting pets during that time for companionship, but also I think cheekily to allow them to go for walks outside. They weren't allowed to go, for long distances, but if you had a dog, obviously you're obliged to take your dog for a walk. Unfortunately, that did have its downsides as well. Sorry, Dobby's away now. It did have its downsides because unfortunately after COVID, when things opened up again and people started going back to work, some people then realized that they didn't actually have the capacity to care for those animals because they were going to the office. And so they didn't want to leave those pets at home alone. And unfortunately, a number of shelters reported that they were giving pets back after COVID, which is really sad.
Yeah, that's pretty horrible. It's like if you had, COVID kids and then you thought like, you know what, that's not for me. I need to find somewhere else for them to go. So I just want to turn to Irem. Irem, I know that you are a fan of dogs more than cats. So tell us a bit about what, because it's not just one dog, but several. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with dogs and what's your favorite sponsorship recommendation, which is not sponsoring this show, but I know that you like to talk about it.
I don't discriminate against any pet, but I just have a fond relationship with dogs in particular. And I take care. I don't have my own dog at the moment because of the reasons you've mentioned, Claire, like my lifestyle before COVID, especially. I was traveling a lot. I was going to the office every day. So I thought it wasn't fair for a dog to sit home waiting for me for all the time. So I never committed to it, but because I love dogs, I actually am taking care of dogs that are like their owners are traveling or on holiday or they need to do something for work. So when they are not able to attend to their pets, they leave them with me. And I do that through an application called Insert Sponsorship. Paw Shake. And that's very interesting, actually. I've discovered it via a friend as well. So that allows me to connect with these kinds of people that are looking for, it's practically Airbnb for dogs. Almost. I actually have a dog right now that I'm taking care of, but she's sleeping. But it's very funny what you said, because I've been doing it for over 6 years now, so way before COVID, mostly doing over the weekends, etc. And during COVID, of course, the dynamics have shifted a lot. I'm now looking after a lot of COVID pets also. They usually have separation anxiety. They are never left alone for a long time. So sometimes I get dog owners asking me to take care of their dogs for like 6-7 hours even, because they cannot even go to the office for a day or for a long meeting without leaving their dogs alone.
Yeah.
So that's something that I also noticed, even from my perspective, that's changed a lot. And I think dogs nowadays are less inclined to be left alone. So they do have more separation anxiety issues, which
That's
is
fascinating.
sad. But I mean,
Yeah.
I'm happy to cater to those needs.
So Guido, what about you? You have a dog as well?
I have a dog in Italy. It's actually my second my second brother, actually, because we called him my father called him Athos, like one of the three musketeers, because at home we are me, my brother, and he's the latest arrival. Well, he is now 10 years. He's not 10 years old, but when we got him, he was actually the third male of the family. So that's how we got his name. And he's waiting for me in Italy, also because he cannot, for the same reasons that Iram explained before. He cannot leave my father. Like, he is my father. For him, is the alpha of the group, of the pack. So he follows him wherever he goes.
Now, coming back to you, Claire, you had an event and you brought all these dogs, but it was a competition for your favorite animal in the bubble, and I think it's really interesting and quite nice to actually bring that part of people's lives that often people don't talk about, especially in the EU, where people talk about policy in a very serious way. So, and they also say, don't work with children and animals. I think that, in TV. So you took on the challenge that you would bring them all in a room. How do you think it makes people feel when they come together at an event? And did it allow you to get more conversation, more traction online? What was your kind of takeaway from the experience?
Yeah, I mean, this is our second year of having the Pet Power Night, and I just see it, everyone's like, oh, I can't wait till next year, because they just love coming and interacting with these dogs. Obviously, you have to be someone who is comfortable around dogs in order to come to this event, because some of the dogs are larger, some of them are jumpy, so they might, if people are scared of dogs, then it's not perhaps a positive experience for them. But this is just something that people, really enjoy coming to Pet Power Night, and it's a chance as well. The contest that you mentioned, it's a chance for others to show off their animals that they can't bring along, obviously in animal form, to the event, because obviously the cats, as I said, might be scared. But we've also had birds, we had a chicken this year, we had a horse. We thought it might be cool to bring the horse, but probably the location wouldn't allow us to have that. But yeah, it's a really great experience, and I think all we have is positive feedback.
Yeah, and I also think it makes people, a little bit more, you're obliged to be more relaxed in the place, or at least engaged with other things than your PowerPoint slides and your, policy speech. Do you think that it gets people to basically warm up to the issue? So what were the big kind of priorities you had, and how do you think it went in terms of getting your message to the right people?
So this year's event was about the update, or lack of update, on what is happening right now with the EU regulations on animal welfare. As you all know, we're very, keenly waiting to hear what the new proposal is going to have in it. And unfortunately, very kindly, Mitja Sedlbauer from DG Sante came along, but was able to give us some, big lines of what is, expected of what they plan to do. But we couldn't actually, get any eyes on the drafts of the proposals yet. But I think having the animals that this legislation will actually impact in the room probably sends quite a keen message back to the policymakers, to the decision makers who are, in charge of that revision, because these animals depend basically on those regulations being improved for their welfare and also for our welfare, because as we talk about that human-animal bond, as animals mean so much to us, if they're in good health, we can also be in better health as well.
Yeah, and I think raising awareness of an issue, when we talk about communication in Brussels and in the EU, the first step is just to be in the conversation, and I think that is achieved by having a presence, by connecting with people, and then you get in the conversation, then you can start shaping that conversation. Now, on a different note, you're a very experienced communicator. You've been with different organizations. You've been with UPS, with CEPI, with Orgelheim. So we've been in this pretty dramatic transitional moment this year. We've had the summer of chaos or ex-chaos. People still don't really know where Twitter, ex-Twitter is heading. In fact, the CEO was at a conference and couldn't really answer the question about, is Musk serious about the payment on X, getting a subscription for people. Yet it remains the real hub of EU conversation. We've seen, despite people's discomfort, it's still where a lot of conversations happening, but people are very uncertain. How have you personally and with your team navigating that uncertainty? Were there any things that you heard during the EU influencer event that you thought was an interesting observation? And where you what's your kind of focus now that the election is coming?
Yeah, so I think, it was really interesting to hear from the influencers about, their views on, I'm sorry, but I refuse to call it X. I'm still calling it Twitter at the moment. Some of my colleagues are even calling it Twix. So it's
Let's rebrand it.
Yeah, rebranding. So we will remain on Twitter/X for now, as I think many of the influencers are. We are looking into, Threads and some of the others. We looked into Mastodon, but I don't think we found it very useful. And we actually will be discussing it within our communications committee in the coming week, actually, to know, where do we want to go. And we have been growing our presence on other platforms such as LinkedIn, but I do believe that still Twitter is quite, the place for engagement in the Brussels bubble anyway. As we know, as we hear from our national associations, Facebook is actually still quite big in certain countries, but we think for Brussels it will be still Twitter. So yeah, let's see, let's follow the progress very closely and see what's happening. But certainly for the elections, for our, we have our manifesto on our website with our key, asks and our contributions. And we'll be probably running more of a Twitter campaign still for now, and LinkedIn as well. But for the moment, we'll be remaining on Twitter,
Yeah, I think the key for communicators in this context is to brace for uncertainty and to just say, look, we will not have a clear answer. It might remain X in a kind of reincarnated version of the platform. It might continue to deteriorate, which I think is probably happening. And we're seeing that LinkedIn gets a certain kind of engagement, so it's a different kind of conversation, which is not the same as X. So you kind of need to do a bit of both. We heard from John that Mastodon could work, in particular in Germany, on railway transportation questions. So if that's your thing, go for it. John will tell you it's working. But also people like Andrew Stroline on human rights was saying that he was getting his own community quite engaged. And in my experience, it's been very interesting that certain topics, you post them on X and suddenly you get a big conversation, and then pretty similar one suddenly gets really dynamic on LinkedIn. And there's not really always a scientific explanation. It's kind of a little bit of the time it was posted, who started the engagement, and where it went. So I think we just need to be comfortable with this fragmented landscape where we have to just move from one to the other. And it still goes back to the fundamentals. You need a clear, compelling story, and you need to discuss those topics with your key audience and use a multi-channel or omni-channel we're describing now strategy. How difficult do you think this is for communicators in Brussels, especially people who've been here for a long time? Because, for the last 10 years, we've seen, actually 25 years since, as you know, we're celebrating, we have been celebrating,
Yeah.
we're going to celebrate for the whole year, 25 years from ZN. Still very excited about that. But, there was a whole moment when people still didn't understand that the digital was important. And then it was social media. And now but what the hell do we need to do in this very changing environment? So when you have these conversations, I'm sure you have them, with colleagues, friends over coffee who say, so how do we deal with this change, this uncertainty, these new channels? What do you think is the kind of the right mindset, or how do you approach that? How do you recommend other people to approach it?
I think the main thing is to not fear change. I mean, I'm old enough that when I first started running certain campaigns, especially when I was at UPS, we were dealing with employees at UPS who did not have access to a computer, and there weren't really, an abundance of smartphones at the time. And I was running a competition about the 100-year centenary of UPS at the time, and I was getting entries to the competition by fax. So things have come a long way since then. So I think it's really, you just need to, what do people have access to? Do they have access to the phone? Is whatever new platform is out, is it easily accessible? Do you have to subscribe to it? Is it easy, for people to use? Is it understandable? And then just embrace that change. Don't fear what's coming up. As I said, I'm being a little bit hesitant. I don't want to call it X. And one of the annoying things that I'm finding is when I'm live tweeting and I want to tweet a photo from my phone, I don't see the X immediately on the phone, whereas I used to see the old Twitter logo. So that is one tip for Musk, please change your branding because it's not very visible. But yeah, just don't fear the change and go with the flow, see what works best for you and your organization and your messaging.
Yeah, I think that's really the key. It's to go with the flow. And, this is the same conversation we had, in fact, 10, 20 years ago. You should obviously allocate your resources and your focus where your audience is moving to. And with the internet, it's often been direct and indirect. So sometimes it's, okay, you're not going to reach the person because they might not be themselves on the channel. But if their assistant or somebody that influences them you can get to them. We're also seeing this kind of renaissance of email newsletters, the much kind of, neglected emails that people still use. I mean, it's amazing if you think about it. I remember in my college in Oxford, 30 years ago, I guess, we were first looking at emails on a green screen, and it was already a bit miraculous. Like, I can send something anywhere in the world, and that technology still works. And I think that one of the lessons there is you have to look at simple things before you necessarily embark on something sophisticated. What we all often say is try to do both. Have the basics right, and then experiment with more cutting edge technologies and tools to do this. Now, when we go to the election, I think we're going to see a lot of new strategies. I mean, every election cycle brings with it a new round of new technologies. I think we're going to see AI come up in a different way. It's very hard to predict how it's going to unfold, because we know that fake news is there. We've been talking about it forever. Whether AI deploys fake news at a scale that we can't handle is a big question. Do you have any fears or any kind of big questions about how the election might come up? Do you expect any big surprises, or what are your thoughts on how it's going to look?
I don't think we're expecting any big surprises. I think we have certain hopes about ensuring that those who are elected into power have knowledge on our subject matters, so that when it comes to times for say there is a massive delay and the legislation on animal welfare only drops in time for the new parliament, we would hope that would be people who would have an understanding of animal health and welfare, who would be able to make the right decisions in that space. But AI is a bit of a black box for me. I'm afraid that I have no knowledge, and I do find it slightly worrying. As you say, we see all of these things right now on social media, and you get these speeches allegedly by famous people, and then it turns out that it was an AI, it was a deep fake, so that is quite worrying. And I do hope that in terms of the elections, that those kind of campaigns will not have a place on social media, but let's wait and see.
Yeah, I think it will, bad actors will be trying their best to use it. We had Russian companies like the Internet Research Agency, I think out of Russia, backed by the Kremlin and the Wagner Group, if you want to think of a worse combination for fake news and terrible things. So they will definitely be throwing everything they can. Now, the question is, the platforms can expect this to happen. So we'll have to see if how they react to it. From our side, we're seeing also the very practical and simple applications of AI in terms of helping you develop content, challenge ideas, and just improve some of the questioning you might have on a topic. And again, with all the caution that you need. Are you kind of looking to certain new tools to experiment? Whether, you mentioned Threads, the Blue Sky is coming up. We've actually just started a ZN account, experimental. Are there any tools, technologies that you'd be curious to experiment more about? VR has gone out of the hype cycle, replaced by AI. But interestingly, we're still we have a couple of projects in the pipeline that are doing that. Anything that you're curious or interested in finding out in the next 6 to 12 months?
And our Secretary General is actually a huge fan of ChatGPT, so we have been looking into that a little bit more. And I even know some colleagues in other associations who said that they started writing press releases using ChatGPT. So we've done a few searches, like we wanted to find out if any of the MEPs had a veterinary or agriculture background, for example. So I think tools like that may become more and more useful, and providing the information, of course, is correct. But yeah, I think for now, we will be looking into Threads. I think that's the one that we're sort of hearing might be a new channel that may really take off. So that's the one we're looking into. But I think ChatGPT certainly is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So for Threads, we need to wait for them to roll it out in Europe. And I think it could be interesting. As you said, some people are still using Facebook. I think we can't just dismiss a channel because we personally are more interested by a different one. And indeed, ChatGPT, we had Maria Linkova during the event, who's a very engaged user of this for CEFIC, so for an association, and she's done actually some work on policy documents, brainstorming, and things like that. So she's been sharing a lot of practical applications of that. So now we have time for a few recommendations. So let's roll the jingle. And I will start with you, Claire. What is your recommendation for our viewers?
I think for all the pet lovers out there, I would recommend a book called Daisy's Gift. It's by Claire Guest. She's the executive of a charity called Medical Detection Dogs. And basically in this book, she tells her story of how her wonderful dog, Daisy, actually managed to detect her cancer. And so effectively saved her life. So it's a really, really heartwarming read, and the ups and downs of the work that Claire did as well to get medical detection dogs really off the ground. But that's now a very, very well regarded charity in the UK, and it's an excellent book.
That sounds absolutely fascinating. Guido, what is your recommendation to our viewers?
I am a bit off topic compared to the general topic of the session today. I would go for Originals: How Nonconformists Move the World by Adam Grant, which is the first book I've read from him, and it opened my mind on how creativity comes to life and how can you actually strategically plan for creativity to happen and put the basis for creativity to happen.
Excellent. I think there's also a great TED talk that he gave on the topic that got a lot of traction. What about you, Iram? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I have 2 recommendations. One is also a book that sits on my coffee table every day, which is The Year of the Dogs by Vincent J. Moussi, who's basically a very known fashion photographer that took in the challenge of photographing dogs and writing their stories. And it's actually like it's very cute. I always go to it when I'm feeling a bit down or upset. It calms me down and cheers me up. And this is a good link to my second recommendation, which is an Instagram channel, which is called Dogs of Brussels, which is basically an account run by me, shameless plug, where I share pictures and also stories of the dogs that I meet in and around Brussels. So I'm trying to replicate what the photographer here has done, try to take nice and cute photos of the dogs, but also tell a bit of the story behind them and their life story. So go give it a follow if you guys like dogs.
Inspired by the humans of New York and the humans of Brussels.
Yes, also that.
Very, very good. I will end with one recommendation to follow the Instagram channel of Cookie, my bunny, who is a enthusiastic supporter of pet relationships with humans. She has a channel which I'll share her. It's Bunny the Bunny, but also Cookie, because there are a lot of cookies on Instagram, as you can imagine. She is saying hi to all of you. She's also saying to have a fantastic weekend. So thank you, Claire, for joining us at short notice. Thank you, Guido. Thank you, Iram. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you online.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.